Foreign Affairs just published an article. It says America still has the upper hand over China, but only if its allies cooperate. That phrase, only if, is the problem, because right now they don't. China doesn't need to win, it just needs to wait.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States, and we expect to survive for another 5,000.
That response was emotional, not strategic. China does need the US market. The Huawei and TikTok battles prove it. But every nation has a threshold where coercion triggers long-term recalibration. ASEAN made India a comprehensive strategic partner, not the US. Germany is trying to rearm, not for NATO, but for European sovereignty. The European Union finalized a free trade agreement with India. Its chief, Ursula von der Leyen, called it the mother of all deals, a quarter of global GDP.
I will travel to India. There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals. One that would create a market of 2 billion people, accounting for almost a quarter of global GDP. And crucially, that would provide a first-mover advantage for Europe with one of the world's fastest growing and most dynamic continents. Europe wants to do business with the growth centers of today and the economic powerhouses of this century, from Latin America to the Indo-Pacific and far beyond. Europe will always choose the world, and the world is ready to choose Europe.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration is admonishing Europe, threatening tariffs, questioning alliance, treating allies like problems. One side is building, the other side is scolding. The world is watching. These are not temporary moves, these are permanent shifts. When Washington treats Greenland like property, Europe does not get angry, it gets clear. When tariffs hit allies, they do not plead, they diversify. When India faces pressure, visa restriction, trades, diplomatic arm twisting, it did not protest loudly. It quietly built ties with everyone else. Civilizational states do not perform loyalty, they preserve autonomy. And here is what foreign affairs misses. Soft power does not start from charm, it starts from credibility.
One of the most important strategic partners in Asia and a potential counterweight to China. So as we try to get India to be more aligned with us instead of with China or Russia, admirable goals, we put tariffs on India, and what does that do? It pushes them more towards China and more towards Russia.
For decades, India consumes American platforms and stories. It trusted American institutions. The US repaid that trust with pressure and mocking, decades of it. But there is a limit. What happens when a billion Indians becomes the critic of the United States? The American soft power does not just fade, it collapses and the world watches. When the global South sees India stand firm, US moral authority does not just fade, it becomes irrelevant. Structural leverage means nothing when when no one consents to be leveraged.
Afterwards, it got heavily involved and was selling a lot of refined products on behalf of Russia, which helped feed the war machine. And that issue has been resolved. Maybe I had a little bit to do with that op-ed, but I can tell you I got actually firebombed by the Indian continent on the internet with all sorts of nasty little attacks. And all I would say to you, don't do that. That's not how we resolve problems here in America. With respect to your question,
the US as a war machine is not new, but the world now sees it as fact, not opinion. No nation trusts a power that relies on violence to get its way. Even America's closest allies acknowledge the long history of US military intervention. This is not feeling, it is recognition. Retired US Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson documented this.
Ever since 9/11, the beast of the national security state, the beast of endless wars, the beast of the alligator that came out of the swamp, for example, and bit Donald Trump just a few days ago, is alive and well. America exists today to make war. How else do we interpret 19 straight years of war and no end in sight? It's part of who we are. It's part of what the American empire is. We're going to cheat and steal to do whatever it is we have to do to continue this war complex. That's the truth of it, and that's the agony of it.
Washington does not wage war by accident. It wages war by design. If the US does not change its core identity away from war making, its global role will not just decline, it will become irrelevant. Because the world is big enough for all to prosper together, cooperation, not conflict, is the way forward. BRICS is rising. Dollar use is falling. Diplomats are not happy. They want to seek the UN headquarters. These are not symbols. They are responses to a power that offers only pressure, not stability. The architect is shifting. Foreign Affairs said America has the upper hand only if its allies cooperate. But the allies are not cooperating. They are building with others, and China is just standing there watching. The question is not whether the US can adapt. The question is whether it even sees the shift. Because by the time it does, the center will be somewhere else and the US will be standing alone.